Hello everyone, it's such a pleasure to see you back on the channel. Today, we'll continue to turn the next gripping pages in the story surrounding lythica and those walking alongside her. In the previous episode, Tony, Hoai's son, had slowly recovered after days of battling a lingering illness. Her health was returning, but the hearts and minds of everyone had just been struck by a heavy blow. Officer Hung, the strong older brother who had always quietly protected his sister, was finally forced to reveal a secret he had kept hidden for over 20 years. That the woman they had always called mother was in fact their stepmother, and their birth mother had left when Hung and Tusan were still too young to understand the warmth of a true mother's embrace. That truth landed like an unexpected crack, leaving Tusan frozen in place, her eyes a mix of confusion and pain. Years of love and trust were suddenly covered in a thick fog, leaving her with a flood of unanswered questions. But this was only the beginning of the challenges Hung would have to face. Between the heavy pressure at work and the turmoil at home, he still had to find a way to hold on to Hoai's heart, the woman he loved. Because by Hoai's side, it wasn't only Hung, there were also Ha and Du, other men who harbored deep feelings for her and were ready to step into a fierce rivalry. And lythica, caught in the whirlwind of emotions and difficult choices, what will she decide? Will she hold tightly to Hung's hand to weather the storms together, or will she take another path, one that seems peaceful yet hides many uncertainties? Today's episode will bring unexpected twists, fateful conversations, and perhaps turning points that could change everything. Stay tuned until the very last minute, because you definitely won't want to miss a single detail. Over the past few days, Hung had been swept into a whirlwind of work and family matters. Meetings bled into endless paperwork, his phone rang without pause, leaving him not a single quiet moment to rest. From early morning until late at night, his feet carried him from one errand to another, sometimes handling issues for relatives, other times rushing back to the office to deal with sudden emergencies. Because of this, his time to see Hoaica had all but vanished. Whenever her face and Tony's crossed his mind, a dull ache would rise in his chest, mingled with the helplessness of not being there to care for them. In stark contrast to Hung's busyness and tension, the atmosphere at Ha's home was peaceful and full of warmth. Ha had just returned from a long business trip, and the moment he stepped inside, he learned that Tony had fallen ill. Without stopping to rest, he devoted all his time to the boy. He brought steaming bowls of porridge, poured warm glasses of water, and patiently fed Tony spoon by spoon. Whenever Tony coughed softly, Ha's gaze would follow him with concern, his hand gently touching the boy's forehead to check for fever. In every gesture, Hoaica could see an unforced tenderness, the kind of affection a father would give his own child. Ha's mother was no less attentive. Naturally kind-hearted, she seemed to have grown even fonder of Tony since he arrived. From early morning, she would head into the kitchen to prepare soft, easy-to-eat dishes so he could enjoy every bite. Later, she would bring a warm towel to gently wipe his face, telling him little stories, sometimes letting out a soft chuckle when he smiled back. There were moments when she would sit by his bed, stroking his soft hair, her voice slow and soothing as she told a bedtime story, lulling him into a peaceful sleep. From her seat in the corner of the room, Hoaica quietly took it all in. In her eyes, this moment resembled a perfect family portrait, one filled with love, protection, and the simple happiness she and her son hadn't fully felt in a long time. Tony, too, seemed to draw new strength. His eyes were brighter, his smile appeared more often, especially whenever Ha entered the room or his mother handed him a small gift. That feeling left Hoaica both warm and hesitant. She knew that somewhere out there, Hung was still struggling with his own pressures. Yet here and now, within the embrace of Ha and his mother, she and Tony felt as though they were living in a true home, one where everyone cared, and every small joy was shared. That morning, lythica decided to return to the old house, the place she and Tony had called home through so many days and nights. In the back garden, where she had planted a lush row of corn the previous season, only dry, brittle stalks remained, their yellow leaves scattered among tall weeds. She wanted to clear the plot, pull up the old corn roots, till the soil, and prepare neat rows for a new crop of vegetables. The man who had quietly stood by her side, didn't hesitate when she asked for help. He slipped on an old work outfit, ready to follow her back to that house, fully aware that working in the garden would be no light task. "I'm here, don't worry," he said with a soft smile, his eyes carrying the sincerity of someone willing to share every burden with her. The road to the old house was bathed in a crisp autumn sun, dry and golden. Leaves spun in the breeze, falling gently to the ground. As they walked, they talked, asking about her plans for the vegetable plot, and Hoai recalling last year's corn harvest, when Tony had waited so eagerly for each ear to ripen so he could proudly show it to the neighbors. But just as they neared the front gate, a familiar figure appeared. It was Diep. He leaned against his motorbike, his face drawn with fatigue, yet his eyes lit up the moment he saw her. Diep, the man who had once passed through her life, leaving behind both joy and deep wounds. More importantly, he was Tony's biological father. All this time, Diep had silently kept watch over Hoai and her son. He knew how much she had endured, and he knew that Hung was the one holding her heart now. But that didn't extinguish his hope. Deep down, Diep still wished for the day when Hoai would return to him, so that the three of them, he, she, and Tony, could live under the same roof, as a whole family. More than once, Diep had openly voiced this wish. But Hoai always refused, gently, yet firmly. She knew her heart belonged to Hung, and any return to Diep would only reopen old wounds for them both. The unexpected encounter cast a quiet shadow over the moment. Stood silently by, watching, while Hoai tightened her grip on the straps of her bag. In her eyes was a flicker of guilt, but also an unmistakable resolve. And perhaps, right then, all three understood, this story was far from over, and the road ahead held turns none of them could yet foresee. When Diep saw Hoai and Ha stepping together into the old garden to start clearing it, a strange feeling welled up inside him. It wasn't outright jealousy, but a restless stir of regret, as if he were looking in from the outside at a scene he might once have belonged to. He walked closer, wearing a polite smile, striking up conversation with both of them. His voice was low yet friendly, and then, almost unexpectedly, he offered to roll up his sleeves and help her with the garden. He said it was partly to share the workload, but also, perhaps, to steal a little more time near her. He hadn't come empty-handed either. On his motorbike trailer was a load of neat red bricks, enough to line the edges of the vegetable beds she was planning to plant. In his mind, when the bricks were laid neatly along the borders, the garden would look tidier, warmer, like a cozy corner of a real home. But before they could get very far, Diep's phone rang. His brow furrowed, it was something urgent. He apologized for having to leave early, and before getting on his bike, he told Hoai to take care of herself, promising to come back when he could to continue helping. Once Diep was gone, the garden was quiet again, with only Ha and Hoai left. The air felt calmer, broken only by the clink of bricks against each other and the scrape of the shovel turning the soil. Ha didn't speak much, but every movement was precise and deliberate, measuring the distance between rows to keep them straight, setting each brick so it wouldn't shift. Hoai worked alongside him, sometimes glancing up to smile softly. She could feel the sincerity in his every gesture, no showiness, no grand promises, just quiet presence and steady help. By late afternoon, the last sunlight painted the garden in golden hues. The red brick borders stood straight and square around the freshly turned soil. Ha wiped the sweat from his brow, his eyes still bright, showing no sign of fatigue. In that look was a simple joy, the satisfaction of completing something meaningful with her. And for Hoai, standing in the neat, revived garden, gratitude swelled in her heart. Amid all of life's chaos, there was still someone willing to give up an entire day to do something small yet deeply warming for her soul. For Hung, this was perhaps the darkest chapter of his life. After taking on the enormous debt caused by his own mother, he was forced to sell the house he had always regarded as his one safe haven. On the day he moved out, every object, every wall seemed to whisper back memories, some warm, others painful. Now, he was staying in an old, run-down house loaned to him by a close friend. Damp-stained walls, a peeling ceiling, and the musty smell of aged wood made it hard to call the place home. But for him, it was all he had left. Just a few nights earlier, in the stillness shared only between the two of them, Hung finally revealed the truth he had kept buried for years. He told Tusan that the woman they had always called mother was, in fact, their stepmother. When they were very young, their birth mother had left without a word. Their father had later remarried to a woman who, having no children of her own, poured all her affection into raising Hung and Tusan as if they were her own. That love had been real, but it came with a fierce possessiveness. She didn't just want their gratitude, she demanded complete obedience to her will. From major life choices to personal matters like romance or marriage, she involved herself deeply. For Tusan, she once arranged a marriage she never wanted. For Hung, she had always insisted he should love and eventually marry Hugh, the woman she believed to be the most suitable and best for him, regardless of the fact that his heart already belonged to Hoai. Her control was more than a burden, it was like an invisible cord tightening around his life. Each time he thought about it, Hung felt torn, bound by gratitude yet trapped by obligation. He didn't know how to break free without betraying her, nor how to protect the people he loved without defying the woman who had, in her own way, raised him. When his family troubles were still tangled like a ball of yarn with no clear end to pull, Hung was hit with yet another blow. That afternoon, just as he returned home, still in his sweat-soaked shirt, not even having the chance to change, his phone rang. The caller ID showed the number of the higher-level command. A sudden, uneasy feeling swept over him, and as expected, the stern voice on the other end delivered the news without preamble. There was a new transfer order from above. Hung, along with another colleague, was to be reassigned to a unit far away. He froze. His grip on the phone tightened. When he heard the location, his heart sank. It was more than 130 kilometers from where he lived. That number wasn't just a physical distance, it was an invisible wall between him and Hoai. How could he be there to protect and care for her and Tony when every day would be split by such a long journey? In his mind, images flickered by, Hoai struggling alone whenever problems arose, Tony growing up without his presence, their already short weekends now cut even shorter by hours of travel. The thought was like a cold hand pressing down on his chest, stealing his breath. Refusing to give in, Hung immediately voiced his concerns to his superiors. He requested they consider transferring someone else or at least placing him somewhere closer. He spoke of his family situation, the responsibilities he bore, and the difficulties this change would bring. But the only response was a firm, unyielding tone. This is a direct order from above. It is mandatory. No one is permitted to refuse. Undeterred, Hung sat down and carefully composed a formal petition to stay. Every word was chosen with care, respectful yet candid, laying out all his personal worries. He sent it off with a sliver of hope. The answer came quickly, and coldly, carry out the transfer order. When he hung up, a hollow emptiness washed over him. He slumped into the old wooden chair in the cramped room he was borrowing. The space, already tight, now felt even more suffocating. The ceiling was stained yellow, the walls mottled with damp, and the ticking of the wall clock seemed louder than ever, each beat like a countdown to the moment he would have to leave this place behind. Hung sat in silence in the small, dim room, his thoughts tangled like a knotted skein of thread. Never before had he felt so cornered. His job, something he had devoted years of loyalty and hard work to, now demanded a harsh condition: accept a transfer hundreds of kilometers away. His family, the place he longed to protect and preserve, was right here, with Hoai and Tony needing him every single day. He knew all too well that if he agreed to the reassignment, every day would be split in two by the long road and endless shifts. There would be no more evenings when he could drop by to check on her, no more spur-of-the-moment trips to the market together, no more being there at her side when she needed a shoulder to lean on. The 130 kilometers between them would not just be a number, it would be hours and days apart, a creeping chill that could quietly erode the bond they had fought so hard to build. But defying the order came with a price even harsher. He could lose his job, the sole source of income keeping him afloat under the crushing weight of debt and daily expenses. Without it, he would have no way to stand firm against the financial storm already pressing down on him. It was as though he stood at a crossroads. One path led to his career, the other to his love, and both were roads he couldn't bear to abandon. Every choice had a loss. He feared that if he went away, the thread connecting him to Hoai would grow thinner and thinner, until one day, when he returned, all that remained would be memories too fragile to hold on to. His eyes wandered aimlessly, searching for an escape in the thick fog of reality. But the more he searched, the more the road ahead seemed to vanish into shadow. Never before had he felt so small, so powerless. So, what will Hung do to break free from the merciless spiral tightening around both his career and his love? Before him lies a crossroads where each path hides its own loss. If he accepts the distant reassignment, he will keep the job, the only thing keeping him afloat amid the crushing weight of debt, but at the cost of leaving Hoai and Tony behind, letting miles of separation slowly erode their bond. If he stays, he will remain beside those he loves most, but risk losing the career he has spent his youth building. Does Hung have the courage to make such a choice when either road will leave him tormented? Or will he find a third path, an unexpected solution no one else could see coming? And what about Hoai, the woman holding his heart? When she learns of this, will she urge him to hold on to his job for the sake of their long-term future? Or will she hope he stays, defying all risks? After all the storms they've weathered together, will their love be strong enough to withstand distance, loneliness, and the trials yet to come? Beyond all this, new events are already stirring in the shadows, familiar faces returning, tangled relationships re-emerging, and secrets long buried threatening to surface. When they do, every choice Hung makes will become infinitely harder. All the answers will slowly unfold in the episodes ahead, where every decision can change a destiny, every moment could become a turning point. Stay tuned, for the road ahead will be filled with surprises, tears, and slivers of hope so fragile they seem ready to break, yet strong enough to save it all.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người câu chuyện về mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca. Như mọi người đã biết thì ở trong tập trước, mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca đã phải rất là đau lòng cố gắng khi nhìn thấy con trai của mình là Tony mắc bệnh. Hùng thì cũng đã đưa Tony tới bệnh viện để kiểm tra. Cũng rất may mắn là khi kết quả trả về thì em ấy không sao. Và Hùng thì cũng phải tiết lộ một sự thật mà anh muốn giấu kín mãi mãi trong lòng, đó là mẹ của anh và Tiểu San thực ra lại không phải là mẹ ruột mà chỉ là mẹ kế. Tin này cũng khiến cho Tiểu San vô cùng sốc. Và hơn nữa là trong tập này thì lại có một sự khó khăn nữa đến với Hùng, khi Hùng phải luôn chuyển công tác đi nơi khác, cách tận ở đây 130 cây. Điều này khiến anh rất lo lắng về việc anh sẽ làm sao để có thể chăm sóc Hoài Ca. Vậy thì liệu Hoài Ca có thể đợi Hùng hay không, và tình cảm của họ có thể bị chia rẽ vì khoảng cách địa lý hay không? Hãy cùng đón xem ở tập sau nha mọi người.